Well, hello there, Kelly Haney. How are you?
Hi, Cheryl. How are you?
Brian's better half. He knows it too.
He
He
does.
always speaks so favorably about you on stage, and I love that about him. I actually have, it's one of the weird things in the world. I have a picture of your husband behind me. He's with me every day.
That's everyone should. Yeah.
One of my favorite things about Brian is that he'll get up and he'll have all his crazy, outfits on.
Yeah.
My wife hates these, just so you guys know. My wife
Yeah, that's not one of my favorite things about him, but there's plenty of other favorite things. So,
Yeah, I was
yeah.
gonna say he's a pretty good guy. So,
Yes.
for those of you watching, my name is Sheryl Hickerson. I'm CEO of Females in Finance. We are a community of professionals who work within the financial services and financial technology space. And today, we're going to talk about why your health is the wealth. And Kelly is affectionately known as the Crazy Health Lady, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But I'm just really happy that you took some time to come in here and show some health love to our community. I appreciate this so
Oh,
much.
I appreciate it
All
as
right.
well.
I've got to ask the story. We got to know why
Mhm.
this health thing became your focus. Talk
Yeah.
about that.
Well, I, along with millions of other Americans, have autoimmune disease, specifically ulcerative colitis. And I was diagnosed at the young age of 19 when I started having pretty crazy gastrointestinal symptoms. And autoimmune disease is pretty powerful and relentless in whatever form it takes. But when it's in your gut, it's not just powerful and relentless, it's also embarrassing, crippling, all of those things. So there I was as a teenager, starting to experience its MO is bloody diarrhea, because what's happening is your intestines, your colon specifically with ulcerative colitis, is just becoming crazily inflamed, and it's attacking your body's attacking itself, is what autoimmune
Yeah.
does. And it's, something has happened, something has confused your body, and it basically starts becoming your enemy, while it's trying to help you. So, I'd grown up eating the normal foods that we all grew up eating, and we had no idea were causing such damage. 80s, 90s processed food explosion. If it wasn't packaged, it wasn't food at that point. And we didn't, we got away from our grandparents and our great grandparents' way of eating, which was straight from the farm. That became kind of a foreign thing during those decades. So, with a lot of us, what we're experiencing now is that's catching up with us, because what we've been eating is not real food. So, it caught up with me in 1999. I was diagnosed, hospitalized, put on medications, got it pretty good under control with the medications, but I definitely still had issues with it over the next decade, and had to, keep taking more medications. And then, after the birth of my daughter in 2008, this is also kind of a mean game that autoimmune disease plays on women, is the hormone shifts of pregnancy and nursing can provoke a flare up. And that's exactly what happened to me. And it was just horrific, by far the worst flare up I've ever had. Long story short, was hospitalized 4 times in 2010 for weeks at a time. All the medications that had worked in the past did not work, were not working. Had to go on immune suppressants,
Wow.
which, that's
Yep.
exactly what they sound like. Because
They're hard.
real hard, lots of side effects, lots of issues, really scary.
Yeah.
The idea of, having to stay on them, really, really scary. And, my life was essentially stolen from me. I was so sick. When you're that sick, you can't do anything. I couldn't be a mom to my little baby. It was it was a dark place, and I felt very trapped in it. And the immune suppressants, while they have their dark side, they work. With a lot of people, they work, and they got me to a place where I could get out of the hospital. I was relatively stable. I still wasn't great, still wasn't in remission, but I was relatively stable. And fast forward to what how I became the crazy health lady is about a year after taking the medications. The side effects were just so awful at that point. And I remember asking my doctor, how long am I going to have to be on these? How long am I going to have to take these? And I'm asking him this as, a 29-year-old essentially, or I'm sorry, it was 30 at the time, but
Young.
Yeah, real young. And he just looked at me kind of like I was crazy for asking the question. And he said, for the rest of your life, you're going to be on these. And my response was, I didn't say it to him, but in my mind, I was saying, what kind of life is that going to be? This shutting down your immune system for however many years you're blessed with on this earth, not a great idea. So that kind of flipped a switch in me. And I said, you know what, I'm going to figure this out. I'm not going to accept this. I'm not going to stay on these drugs for the rest of my life. I am going to figure out how to do this the natural way. And at the time, even though this was only a little over a decade ago, shockingly, there wasn't a lot of information out there on how to do that. But what there was, I found, and I consumed it, and I started applying it, and I haven't stopped ever since. And I actually came off of the immune suppressants. I made that choice to take that risk once I felt like I had a plan. And it has been over 10 years now that I have been flare free, and it's been over 9 years that I have been completely medication free, which is just a miracle. And it's because, number one, it's a miracle, and I'm very fortunate. But number two, because I've worked very hard with diet and lifestyle changes, and that's essentially what it comes down to.
So my father has Crohn's,
Mm-hmm.
and apparently it's familial, so it can run through
Yeah.
in different ways. It doesn't always have to show up as Crohn's.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being a child, and people used to always tell me I had a case of the nerves. Oh, it's just, because I'd have to go potty all the, Cheryl, she's got a case of the nerves. As I got older, and I was pretty lean, I was a beefy little kid. I was real strong, but something happened by about 12th grade, first year of college. I started gaining weight, and it was coming on very quickly. And it's interesting because I got to a point in my 30s where all of a sudden I decided, I'm really going to kick this. It was about 34, and I said, I'm going to really buckle down and get my health in order. The problem is that you're right. I mean, I don't know if people realize just 15, 16 years ago, there really wasn't a lot of information. We had, Richard Simmons coming on us at infomercials at night. We had, every sort of, Weight Watchers was just kind of coming up in the thing. You had people selling every kind of multi-level marketing, shake, pills, everything else. So this is all coming at me. And of course, I'm, going to consume all of this stuff because it's the quick pill. It's a quick fix. It's the quick this. End up that I lost 117 pounds in 14 months.
Wow.
Yeah. They also don't tell you, which is one of the things I used to go to a gym who refused to allow The Biggest Loser to be played in their gym. They said, one, because they're under such crazy amounts of restrictions. It's unhealthy. You're seeing people transform their bodies. Many of them did not sustain that. But here I was on this Biggest Loser kick. And I was a Biggest Loser, but I also ended up losing my gallbladder. This was the beginning of it. Here comes the gallbladder out. And of course you're like, oh, it's just a gallbladder. I'm going to tell you, little bitty organs, we're all born with things that we need.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't until after it was taken out that they tell you, by the way, this means your colon's going to be 100% taxed out in trying to create that bile, that breakdown effect. And I don't know if many people actually talk to, especially women, because our bodies, when you have babies and stuff, there's things that get compressed, things that get released, things that get, as your body's changing through all of that. What I ended up finding out, and it wasn't until years later that I have biliary duct disorder. My gallbladder failed because it was going to fail, because back when I had a case of the nerves as a kid, it was, I didn't have good bile ducts. I just didn't have them. And when I had the gallbladder out, it ended up with a C. diff infection that almost killed me. That took, it's the only time in my life I tell everybody I hit goal weight. They're like, this doesn't count.
Right. Yeah.
When you lose
right?
19 pounds in 3 days, it doesn't count.
No.
Like, that's not it. Yeah. And clearly it didn't, because it's all back on. But I'm going to tell you something else I haven't told you since the last time we talked. So I have had that case of the nerves feeling again in my stomach. And I thought, what's going on? So my girlfriend told me, she says, have you ever tried low histamine? And I thought at first it was going to be one of those janky things, Kelly, where it was going to be, oh, we're going to just try this. And no. I have to tell you, it's the first time in my life, I want you to imagine 50 plus years on this planet, that I found out that certain foods are also not meant for you. Like, here you are thinking you're eating healthy, right? And this diet, friends, I'm going to tell you, was rough. It was a minimum 4-week, optimum 6-week. You take everything out that's the typical triggers for the inflammatory response. And that's exactly what an ulcerative colitis is, a inflammatory response. My dad with Crohn's disease is an inflammatory response. Our body's attacking ourselves through this inflammation. And yeah, you know what? Then you add the food back one at a time. Yeah, I'm just going to tell you right now, peanut butter, tomatoes, green peppers. I've been, those things are not my friends. They literally hate me and stuff. And I don't know if you found that as you went back into, do you find that to be true, that foods are very, we're such unique creatures that we need to find our foods, our things, our friends in that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely relate to what you're saying, because that's part of it, is we're eating these things on a daily basis that, with all the gut damage we've all incurred from, probably even before we were born, we do have individual issues. And one of the first things I did when I found my beloved naturopath, who has been just a guiding light for me, was get food sensitivity testing. And it's, it's different from allergy. You're not going to have an anaphylactic reaction to it, but your body is reacting to it. So yeah, figuring out what those foods were, which for me, the number one is gluten, even though I don't have celiac disease.
Exactly. And I was so tired of people saying, oh, these people with their gluten intolerance. It's a gluten sensitivity. And I will also say, to your point, what you said earlier, I'm pretty certain that the bread that my grandma Brown ate is not the bread that I'm buying on the shelf at the local grocery store.
No.
Would you say that's
the bread accurate? That she ate probably had, 3 ingredients as opposed to 25.
Yeah. So you can see what that is. One of the questions I also wanted to ask you was where you're seeing that women need the most direction when it comes to their health, because we had a lot of the things that and I read your newsletter. You send out a really great newsletter, and it's really comprehensive. And I think that one of the things that we don't openly talk about is women. Like, it's super taboo for us to talk about, we can't, you started right off the show, like, we can't talk about our bowel movements. We can't talk about, how we feel if it's, the time of the month. We can't talk about, how foods are triggering headache. We're living with all of this and smiling through a lot of it. And then when I get one-on-one with friends or in women in the community, they're like, I actually suffer from this terribly. So I was just curious where you're finding with some of the clients, with these women, what they're in need of the most.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's like, we feel like we need permission to start talking about these things, but we don't, because guess what? Like, everybody's got issues. I mean, it is talk about a pandemic. Everybody, especially women, because we try to do it all, and a lot of us don't take care of ourselves. So everybody's got issues. But I think, to me, the thing that comes up the most is, I mentioned 10 years ago, there wasn't a whole lot of information out there with how to heal and stay healed naturally. And now it's like, it's the opposite problem.
Almost too much. Yeah.
There is so much information, and it is all conflicting. So for me, what I like to do is just kind of break things down to be like, it's real food. What you just said about your grandmother's bread, that was real food. The bread that you go and buy off the shelf at the store, not so real anymore.
Yeah.
So just kind of, I try to break things down really generally and simply to try to block out a lot of that noise that we're all hearing with try this diet and this diet and this diet. Whereas there are actual practical steps that everybody can take. Like you said, try some food elimination, figure out what's making you feel this way. But also at the same time, you're taking steps to reduce the inflammation in your body, which we all have. And that is the underlying cause of most disease.
Yeah. And, I found one of the things people love to go out and don't, for those people watching me, come at me with because I'm going to say something really unfavorable. I appreciate every woman out there who's holding her glass of wine and through the COVID. One of the food eliminations for me was alcohol, anything fermented. Honestly, it was alcohol, it was kefir, it was raisins. If you're fermenting something down, there is a process that happens in the food that some people have reactions to. And one of the things that I found coming out of this on the other side, 15 pounds lighter, mind you, 4 weeks later, 15 pounds.
Yeah.
And I was eating, at first it was like, I'll have an egg. Like, you don't even know what to eat. You're trying to figure, but once you started getting into your rhythm, I mean, I was eating things like mozzarella. I just didn't eat all of the cheeses, or I was eating things like, eggs, or I was eating things, but I wasn't eating, other foods. Right. But the alcohol, I've got to tell you, is the one thing I thought I would miss it, and I don't. And I almost feel guilty for the people watching this. Like, if you get your drink on and you're happy, you go do your little drink. If I never sip another drop of alcohol again, I'm going to be okay, because my stomach feels so much better without it.
Yeah.
Do you find that to be true?
I mean, I also hate to say this because, people get mad when you start talking about alcohol, but I do occasionally have some, but it's poison. I mean, it really truly is. And it's not good for us.
I feel like when it's going and it, a lot of times people in mixed drinks, for example, so I drink no soda now, zero, it's gone. And so I think that a lot of times they're mixed with things, and then I'm like, but I wouldn't drink that by itself. So why would I mix it to make it okay, kind of a thing? And funny enough, I'm going to show you this. This is Kristen Andre. I'm going to make sure she sees this. So she started this thing. So I've been drinking this water.
Oh, awesome.
Thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, when I first started it, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It isn't some exam. It's like making sure I get my water in. So Kristen Andre had this big, she did the 75 hard, it's called, challenge, where they have to drink a gallon of water a day, work out twice a day. They have to do these things, and she's doing it. And she was also somebody who really enjoyed her alcohol. And here she is. She goes, I'm through on the other side of it, and I'm doing really well. The more water you drink, the more water your body wants. Like, I can literally drink and think, oh, I'm so full. In 20 minutes, my body, I can literally feel like my lips are getting parched, because my mouth is over going, water's over there. Water. So, I think that's really important is, and I think it's in some of the services that you offer to people when you're working with them. Talk to people about the work that you do when you work with folks on their health.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I don't have any specific plan or procedure. It's, I post my blog on a regular basis, and I have various ways of people to reach out for me. And the first thing I do is listen, like, what's your story? Because as we've said, everybody's story is different. Everybody's issues are similar, but different. And then I just say, here is what's worked for me.
Yeah.
And it gives people a baseline with the understanding that, okay, it may not be 100% what works for them, but it's just, I always think about, what did I want 10, 15 years, or way more than that when I was diagnosed? What would I have killed for? Well, it was somebody coming into my hospital bedside, or before I got to that point, and saying, here's what worked for me. And I've been disease and medication free for a decade now. Yeah. So that's kind of what I do is be that person for the person whose shoes I have been in.
Yeah, to sort of meet them where they're at, and then offer that opportunity to sort of start fresh. I saw something recently, and I actually did a little research because of it. There was a picture on a boardwalk in Santa Cruz. I think it was like 1961. I want to say 1959, 1961. I can't remember the year. Every single person on there walking along, they have kids, they're out getting ready to go swimming. there was nobody overweight. And I'm talking about, you're talking about 100+ people on this boardwalk.
Mm-hmm.
And it was right around that time when they started introducing like the processed like cereals. And then and then things as simple as oatmeal started becoming even more processed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was right after that is when the health started to flip, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's really interesting, extremely telling of how do we get back to times where we're returning. And I know I've heard perimeter shopping. I've heard things like, and we're pretty good about that. We actually use imperfect foods because there's nothing wrong with ugly fruit.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with ugly vegetables. And I love getting pounds of carrots for 80 cents. I'm not going to lie. Our bill is so incredibly cheap. But it's one of those things that's forced us to eat more fruits and vegetables because of it. And plus the reset, the diet, what I like to call it a reset. All of a sudden I was realizing like how much stuff I was eating that was not good for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then trying to add it back. And I thought, I don't even miss it. I'm not going to do that. So I think it's great that you're meeting people where they're at and then trying to help sort of talk them off. Do you also offer, and I'm sort of doing this blind, but do you offer services such as helping people sort of revamp their pantries, for example, like kind of go through and be like, yeah, that not so much.
Yeah. I'll do whatever people need. I mean, honestly, this is my life's work now because I have been through it and I want to help whoever I can help. So whatever you need, I will do whatever I can, basically.
Yeah. That's even like the grocery store. People don't even really know what to buy.
Oh yeah. It's again, too much information out there, conflicting. It's
very much so.
Break it down.
One of the things that I would recommend is a really simple idea because I'm always a marketer, but I can't ever turn things off. Would be I use Instacart to have our deliveries made. You can open a group Instacart and invite Kelly to your cart, and she can see all the stuff you're about to buy.
That's great.
And she can tell you straight away, hey, this one here, rethink, or hey, what if you exchange this fruit for that instead? It's just going to have less sugar. Knowing what you know about your clients and their health issues, because I think sometimes too, a really good one is diabetics. They will try really hard to get their sugars down, and then they get really pissed when they find out like spaghetti has sauce has sugar in it, tomato sauce. Are you kidding? Like I was shocked when I started going through when I did that sort of health reset and I started looking at the labels. I was amazed at how and sugar has about 19 different names. Yeah. That's not fair.
Yeah. Some you don't even recognize. Yeah.
Yeah. And you do. And you're like, yeah, this one here, this is what this means. My husband, interestingly enough, found that aspartame, which I think is like the most legal poisonous drug that's out there on the planet, every diet, Coke or whatever, it causes his immediate reaction to it is he starts getting extra stomach problems, like the bubbling and the this and the that. Right. And so I think that that's the stuff that you have the expertise to say, hey, rethink this. This could be what's causing your headaches. This could be what's causing your response.
For sure. And my short answer is going to be move away from all that anyway and move more towards whole foods. Because then we start to avoid a lot of the problems that the processed stuff brings.
It's like the juices. Every time I hear people say talking about juice, I'm like, just eat the fruit.
Yeah.
Like why you got to make orange juice? Just
you get the fiber if you eat the whole dang thing, right? So,
I will tell you one thing I used to do, and I don't know if you're in favor of this or not, but my kids did so I have a really nice juicer, I can actually separate the pulp because my little kids will be like, I don't know if I like that. So I would take that, but all the pulp, and I never told them, I would save it. And then I would make muffins.
Yes.
And pack it back in there.
Fabulous idea. Yeah.
Pack it all back in there. And then they're like, this is good. And I'm like, you got your whole orange in there. You got your whole, I got it in there. And then, I have to tell you, there's this woman on, speaking of, I watched this woman on TikTok the other night. I want to tell you a quick story. She is somebody who does like vegan cooking and stuff. And I will say this, and this is going to be another one. Someone's going to come at me. Remember, I live in Missouri. We need more meatless days. We need more meatless days.
Completely agree. Yes.
Animal products are not sustainable long term for us.
Mm-hmm.
People
Completely
don't like to
agree.
hear that. They don't
No,
like
they
to hear
don't,
that at
but
all.
it's true.
They're like, I like my bacon. Trust me, I live in this country of it. And it's fine if you have it. I don't have a problem with people having it. But in our house, we don't eat it every day.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the big changes in the Hickerson household, because Daryl was used to eating, he'd get up and he'd have have pork chops, and they would
Mm-hmm.
have ground beef and hamburgers. And I'm like, yeah, no, we're
Mm-hmm.
just going to have a salad
Mm-hmm.
with what in it? With other salad,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just what we need. But this woman on TikTok, she was talking about how much people throw away of foods that we're actually can consume all of it if we know
Mm-hmm.
how to consume it.
Yeah.
And that's what I think our grandparents were really good at. And I think those are lost arts of asking. So in the example she provided, and I think it would be a really good opportunity for every person watching, reach out to your grandparents and
Yeah.
ask them. Because one of the things that I learned from it was this one, she had, if you make corn and you're shucking the corn, she goes, all that silk, she goes, don't throw that away. Do not throw it away. She says, just put it into it. This is what she told me. I know, I'm going to put it into the pot. Okay. And you boil it down, and you boil it for 30 minutes. All the corn silk you put in there. And then the water that comes from that, you drink that as a tea. And you know what? She goes, this is what we gave. And and I still do, for anybody who has upset tummies, that feels like they are, and it's not a, laxative where it's pushing things out. Absolutely not. She goes, it's putting all of the good stuff back in, and it has like repairing things. So I thought, okay, this woman's full of it. So I go pull up. Oh yeah, I'm from Missouri. We're the show me state. You show me this. So I go out and do my research, and in fact, she is correct that much of that corn silk is broken down and pulverized a lot of times into pills.
Mm-hmm.
When you're right there, she's like, so when you're shucking that in that corn, you should be taking that silk aside. She goes, and some people used to put it in tea, and they didn't tell people, like iced tea.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the corn silk water. And she's like, if you look that up, and I looked it up, and she was in fact telling the truth.
I've never heard of that. That's fascinating, but it's not surprising.
And I just sat there. I know. I tell everybody, TikTok taught me all the time. I'm like, TikTok taught me this, And so I think that that's really interesting. And I think that that's where someone such as yourself, you're providing those snippets of things that I thought, well, I didn't think about that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think about that at all. I know that you have your website.
Mm-hmm.
I also encourage everyone, if you can, go out and sign up for her newsletter. You'll learn things every month. It's fabulous. I always get new ideas of stuff. I'm like, well, I didn't know about that. And you can also contact Kelly at her email address. Tell me, is there anything else that you think is really important as we're wrapping this up that you think, you know what, I want to make certain I share this with the listeners and watchers today?
Again, just to keep it real high level, but something we all need to hear. It's all about what we eat, and it's all about how we live. It's our diet and our lifestyle that will either keep us healthy or make us sick.
Yeah. And I have to also tell you too, you hit on something at the, about midway through about when you were talking about all the medications and stuff. If you actually add up all the medications that people take, if you just were to eat as organic as you can, as clean as you can. I mean, I know that there's, what do they call them, like the dirty 30 or something like that. There's certain ones that, that you can skip these, but you really should stick to organic on that. I have to tell you, plant-based, every chance you can look at something and go plant-based, I do anymore. I've really laid off, and I've laid off a lot of bread in general.
Yeah.
I am amazed at sandwiches that come and the bread.
Yeah.
It's like, and I think, well, and this is the way I correlate it. So I'm about to get real. If it's that big and squishy, it's going to go back on my hind end and be big and squishy. So I just take it off.
Yeah.
Isn't that, I know it's too real, but because it's true, because it's just, and I also know for me, after going through a reset, that the yeast in it is going to probably cause some problems too.
Among all the other things in it. Yeah.
And you don't even,
it's not serving you. Yeah. Yeah.
No, not at all. And so I just, and or if it makes you feel any better watching, if you can take that off and it means you get more of something else that you do like, then I think it's a good exchange because
yeah, once the palates adjust, like I don't, for as healthy as I eat, I don't feel deprived at all because I'm not.
I bet you get asked that a lot.
Oh my gosh, all the time. And I'm like, no, I would never go back to eating the standard American diet that I ate before. I feel so much more happy and healthy and satisfied eating, a meal that I know not only tastes good, but is, doing my body good.
Yeah. And it does take a little bit of adjustment there because it's been trained. It can be untrained and retrained into something else. And then once you do that, because like right now we eat a minimum of 3 vegetables with every meal at night.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that fills up 3/4 of our plate. And the carb, like we used to have a bread all the time. No, we've cut that down to about 2 nights a week that I'll serve like a piece of bread with something. Otherwise, I know it took a while. I got a 13-year-old. Trust me, he was like, "Where's the bread?
Yeah,
Where's the pasta?
Especially for them. Yeah, it's hard.
I'm like, yeah, we're changing. We're changing. They don't like that word, so too fun. And I think adults don't either. Well, this has been wonderful. You're wonderful. The whole Haney family is wonderful.
Thank you.
I really appreciate this. This is really good information. And make sure you reach out to Kelly and let her help and talk. Sign up for a newsletter. We'll make sure we have a link for your newsletter as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, my dear. All right. Take care.
You too.